Somewhere along the way, I started to accept loneliness as my constant companion. At 52, I had a life filled with quiet rituals. My days consisted of work at the library, evenings with books or reruns of old sitcoms, and weekends that always looked the same: grocery shopping on Saturday mornings, a coffee at the small cafe down the street, and perhaps a walk around the park if I felt up for it. I told myself I didn't need much. After all, my children were grown, my husband was, well, no longer mine, and I was mostly at peace with my solitude. But peace can sometimes feel hollow. That morning, as I wandered through the aisles of my usual grocery store, scanning the shelves for a specific brand of tea, I felt an odd sensation, a strange pull, a nudge in my spirit that I hadn't felt in years. I looked up and saw him, a young man, maybe late 20s, early 30s, with a warm smile and easy confidence. He was tall, with broad shoulders and eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and he was holding a box of the very tea I had been searching for. "Oh. You found it," I said with a surprised laugh, gesturing to the box in his hand. He looked at me, a light sparking in his eyes. "Looks like I got lucky. Do you need one too? Here." He held it out to me, that smile lighting up his entire face. His name was Tyler, and after our brief encounter, he walked with me to the checkout, carrying on an easy conversation as if we were old friends. Over the next few weeks, I kept bumping into Tyler at the grocery store. It became our little joke, a coincidence that happened too many times to ignore. Soon, it wasn't just in the grocery aisles where we talked. One Saturday, he invited me to join him for a coffee at the cafe next door, and I couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked me to do something so simple yet felt so meaningful. At the cafe, I learned bits and pieces about him. Tyler worked as a physical therapist and had a genuine passion for helping people. He spoke with a warmth that drew me in, and he listened to my words with an attentiveness that felt rare and refreshing. I found myself talking about things I hadn't shared in ages, stories from my youth, tales of my children, even small regrets that lingered like shadows. And Tyler listened with such empathy, a smile or laugh in all the right places, that I felt something inside me begin to soften. One day, he mentioned his love for hiking, and before I could even think it through, I found myself saying, "I used to love hiking too. Haven't been in years, though." His face lit up. "Then you should come with me next weekend. Nothing too crazy, I promise. Just a nice, easy trail." The old me would have hesitated, made up some excuse about my knee or my age, but his enthusiasm was contagious. I heard myself saying, "All right, Tyler. Next weekend, it is." That Saturday, he picked me up early, and we drove out to a nearby park. The fresh air, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the sound of our laughter as he shared funny stories, it was like a tiny rebirth, a reminder of a side of me I thought I'd left behind. We took breaks when I needed, laughing at how winded I got compared to him, but he never made me feel out of place or too old. Instead, he seemed to appreciate my company, and I felt more alive than I had in years. Each moment we spent together added to a warmth I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just that he was charming, it was the way he looked at me, saw me, as if I mattered. I started looking forward to our next accidental meetings at the grocery store and our plans outside of it. Tyler brought color back to a life that had grown too grayed. It was a few weeks later, in the quiet of my bedroom, that the realization hit me like a whisper I could no longer ignore. I'd just returned from an afternoon coffee with Tyler, where he'd made me laugh so hard I'd nearly spilled my drink. As I replayed our conversation in my mind, the way he'd leaned in close, his eyes filled with genuine interest, I felt a flutter I hadn't felt in decades. I sat on the edge of my bed, stunned by the truth surfacing within me. I had feelings for him. Real, undeniable, heart-thudding feelings. How ridiculous it sounded, even in my head. I was a woman in her 50s, a mother, and he was young, free-spirited, with a whole life ahead of him. Yet, my heart seemed to have its own ideas, ideas that refused to be restrained by logic or society's expectations. It wasn't just his charm or his youthful energy, it was the way he made me feel, like I was more than the sum of my years or the roles I had filled in other people's lives. With him, I felt vibrant, interesting, and, dare I say it, beautiful. It was a feeling I hadn't allowed myself to indulge in since before my divorce, and it frightened me as much as it thrilled me. I questioned myself relentlessly that evening. What was I doing? What could Tyler possibly see in a woman like me? Did he even feel the same, or was he simply being friendly? I didn't have answers, only the awareness that these feelings weren't going away, no matter how impractical they seemed. That night, as I lay in bed, I tried to push away the warmth that had started growing in my chest. But a part of me, the part that Tyler had revived, whispered a truth I hadn't dared consider before. Maybe, just maybe, I deserved this feeling. In the days that followed, my emotions were all over the place. One moment, I felt a wave of excitement, as if I were 20 again, daydreaming about someone who made my heart race. The next, a rush of doubt would settle over me like a cold mist, reminding me of the realities I couldn't ignore. I was decades older than him. I had grown children, and a lifetime of experience that separated me from the carefree world Tyler seemed to inhabit. I began to imagine what people would think if they knew. Would they assume I was some foolish woman clinging to youth, desperate for affection? The thought made my cheeks burn with embarrassment. But then, there were moments when I remembered Tyler's laughter, his eyes lighting up when he talked about his passions, and the way he looked at me, not with pity, not with judgment, but with genuine admiration and care. Those moments made me wonder if maybe it didn't matter what people thought. Maybe it mattered only what I felt. The next time I saw him, we went for a walk along the river. He was telling me about a book he'd recently read, and I found myself mesmerized by the way he expressed himself, his hands gesturing animatedly, his words tumbling out with that youthful enthusiasm I adored. I was so absorbed in listening that I hadn't realized he'd stopped talking and was now looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You're quiet today, Lauren," he said softly, using my name in a way that made my heart skip. "Is everything okay?" For a moment, I felt the urge to tell him everything, to lay bare the storm of feelings swirling inside me. But fear held me back. I couldn't risk ruining what we had, whatever it was, by burdening him with my emotions. I forced a smile and nodded, reassuring him with the best mask I could manage. "I'm fine, Tyler. Just lost in thought." But as we continued our walk, I felt the ache in my chest deepen. I couldn't keep avoiding the truth or the risks involved. If I wanted more than fleeting moments with him, I'd have to confront my feelings and decide what to do with them. And the hardest part? I still didn't know if I had the courage to take that leap. As the days turned into weeks, the bond between Tyler and me deepened, yet the nagging doubt never fully left my mind. I knew I had to confront my feelings. It was no longer just a crush or a fleeting fancy. But how? I pondered this question repeatedly as I sat in my cozy living room, the glow of the evening light casting soft shadows around me. Then, one quiet evening, an idea sparked. I could invite him over. It seemed like the next logical step, an opportunity for us to connect without the public gaze. It would be simple. I could prepare dinner, perhaps share a bottle of wine, and we could talk without the distractions of the world. It felt daring, exhilarating even, but also terrifying. What if it didn't go as I hoped? What if he realized he'd made a mistake spending time with me? Or worse, what if my heart led me to a place I couldn't bear? But in that moment, I chose to silence those fears. I felt a strong desire to create a space where we could be together, free from the constraints of societal judgment, a space where I could express my feelings without hesitation. With trembling hands, I picked up my phone and sent him a text. "Hey, Tyler. I was thinking it would be nice to hang out at my place. How about dinner this weekend?" As I hit send, my heart raced. I felt a mix of excitement and dread, knowing I had opened a door I couldn't close. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a reply. "That sounds great. I'd love to. What time should I come over?" I couldn't help but smile as I typed back. "How about 6? I'll whip up something special." Once the text was sent, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It was done. I was opening my home and my heart to this man who had come to mean so much to me. Now all I had to do was hope that it would lead to something beautiful. The day of our dinner arrived with a blend of anticipation and nerves that kept my stomach fluttering. I spent the morning cleaning my apartment, rearranging the flowers on the table, and choosing just the right playlist for our evening. I settled on a mix of soft jazz and classic rock, songs that had once been the soundtrack of my youth. Each note felt like a step back in time, a reminder of who I was before life took its many turns. By 6 o'clock, I had laid out a simple but delicious spread: roasted chicken, seasonal vegetables, and a decadent chocolate cake for dessert. As I set the table, I couldn't shake the feeling that this dinner was more than just a meal, it was a pivotal moment in my life. When Tyler arrived, he greeted me with that warm smile that had become my favorite sight. "Wow, this looks amazing, Lauren," he said, stepping into my home. His eyes darted around, taking in the cozy atmosphere, the soft glow of candlelight. "Thank you. I hope you're hungry," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We sat down to eat, and as we shared stories over the meal, the conversation flowed effortlessly. There was something undeniably intimate about being in my space, a connection that felt charged with potential. Tyler made me laugh until my sides hurt, and as he spoke, I felt as though I were discovering layers of him that were both exciting and beautiful. At one point, as we enjoyed dessert, he leaned closer, his voice lowering. "You know, I've really enjoyed spending time with you, Lauren. You bring a kind of light that I didn't realize I was missing in my life." My heart raced at his words, and I felt the warmth of a blush creeping up my cheeks. "I feel the same way, Tyler. You brought so much joy back into my world." It was then that I realized how much I had longed for this connection, a feeling of being seen and cherished. The air around us seemed to thrum with unspoken possibilities. The world outside faded into the background as I found myself captivated by the closeness of his presence, the way he watched me with a mix of admiration and curiosity. "Can I ask you something?" he said, his expression suddenly serious. "Of course," I replied, my heart pounding in anticipation. "Do you ever think about what people might say? About us, I mean?" His question hung between us, heavy with implication, and for a brief moment, I felt my breath catch. But as I looked into his eyes, I saw no judgment, only an openness that made me feel safe. "No," I finally said, feeling a surge of courage. "Not anymore. Right now, I just want to be here with you." His smile returned, brighter than before, and I knew then that this night was not just a dinner, it was the beginning of something significant, a dance of hearts that could defy the boundaries of age and expectation. As the evening unfolded, we moved to the living room, where I had a comfortable couch and an inviting atmosphere lit by soft lamps. We curled up together, sharing more stories and laughter as the minutes slipped away unnoticed. I felt like I was floating, suspended in this beautiful bubble of connection, where nothing outside mattered. In those moments, we talked about our hopes and dreams, the kind of life we each wanted. Tyler shared his passion for adventure, his dreams of traveling to distant places and experiencing new cultures. I listened intently, imagining the thrill of journeying alongside him, a stark contrast to my predictable life. But it wasn't just his dreams that captivated me, it was the way he looked at me while sharing them, as if I was part of that future. It struck me that love, regardless of age, was built on shared experiences and the willingness to explore life together, to be vulnerable and honest with one another. After a while, our conversation quieted, and for a moment, a gentle silence enveloped us. I could feel the electricity in the air, the anticipation of what might come next. My heart raced, a mix of excitement and nervousness as I realized I was on the cusp of a new chapter. Then, in a moment that felt both inevitable and terrifying, Tyler reached out, brushing his fingers against mine. It was a simple gesture, yet it sent a wave of warmth flooding through me. I turned to face him, our eyes locking in a way that felt like an unspoken agreement, something was about to shift. "Lauren," he said, his voice low and earnest, "I know there's an age difference, and I want you to know that it doesn't matter to me. What matters is how I feel when I'm with you." My breath caught in my throat as his words settled in my heart. They resonated with the truth I had been denying. It didn't matter what others might think, what mattered was the way he made me feel alive, cherished, and youthful again. As he leaned in closer, I felt a rush of emotion wash over me, a mix of fear and longing. I had spent so long guarding my heart, afraid of the judgment that would come with pursuing something that seemed so unconventional. But in that moment, all my doubts faded. I wanted this, I wanted him. When our lips finally met, it was electric, a beautiful merging of two worlds that felt right despite the chaos of life surrounding us. I had never imagined that love could bloom so vibrantly at this stage of my life. As we pulled back, our foreheads resting together, I realized I was embarking on a journey that challenged societal norms, but filled my heart with joy. This was love, not just in its purest form, but also in its most fearless. It didn't ask for permission or validation, it simply existed, daring me to embrace it wholeheartedly. I was ready to embrace whatever this new path might bring, knowing that true love could flourish at any age. As the evening wound down, I couldn't help but reflect on the whirlwind of emotions I had experienced. Sitting beside Tyler, I felt a sense of completeness, a feeling of having stepped into a new phase of life that I never anticipated. In the days that followed, our connection deepened. We laughed more, explored our interests together, and opened up about our fears and dreams. Each moment felt like a revelation, a reminder that love doesn't adhere to a timeline. It isn't bound by age, experience, or societal expectations. Instead, it thrives in the authenticity of two hearts finding resonance with one another. I began to see the world differently, too. Where once I had viewed my age as a barrier, I now recognized it as a tapestry of experiences that shaped who I was. I carried my memories with pride, understanding that they enriched my perspective and added depth to my relationship with Tyler. I was no longer just a mother or a woman in her 50s, I was a vibrant individual capable of love and passion. During a quiet moment, I looked into Tyler's eyes and said, I used to think that love was something I had to put aside at my age. But you've shown me that it can be just as beautiful, even more so, when it's unexpected. He smiled, a knowing look in his eyes. Love has no expiration date, Lauren. It only needs two willing hearts. I realized then that our love story was a celebration of life, one that invited others to embrace their desires, regardless of the obstacles that society often imposes. I felt a duty to share this message, to remind those around me that love is not just for the young, it's for anyone who dares to seek it, to pursue happiness, and to challenge the norms that seek to confine us. So, I began to share my journey with friends and family, encouraging them to let go of their fears and judgments. I wanted them to see that it's never too late to find love, to reignite the flames of passion and connection, and to allow oneself the joy of a new beginning. Life is too short to be dictated by what others think. I had learned that love, in all its forms, is a powerful force. It lifts us, inspires us, and reminds us that we are deserving of joy at every age. And as I walked hand in hand with Tyler into this new chapter, I felt grateful for the unexpected twist life had thrown my way, one that had opened my heart and filled my life with a vibrant love that promised to endure.